Yeah. I got you.
Okay. Okay, loud.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Mark G. Abolitionist on the air with you at KEXU 96.1 FM LP Revolution Radio, where we explore the connection between imperial war and incarceration. I don't limit myself to being a prison abolitionist because there are more structures and institutions that I seek to abolish than just incarceration. For example, white supremacy and racism, two different things. Male supremacy and patriarchy, two different things. Class supremacy and wage oppression, two different things. And imperial war. Yes, imperial war is an institution of the American empire. Let me be very clear. The United States military is an institution of the American empire, as we all know. However, it serves the institution of imperial war. The empire's need for imperial conquest shapes and defines the U.S. military. In fact, the European settler lust and desire and need for conquest of Indian lands made the development of a military necessary. All who opposed or resisted were killed or imprisoned. The first reservations were in fact prisons. I'm going to talk a little bit about Vietnam. Y'all make sure you also hear Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, and any and every inner city in America. The time of killing done, 42 died that morning in 10 minutes. The time of murder and rape begun, cleared the village, burned it to the ground. The time of killing done, the time of murder and rape begun, a howl in the silence of our movement. Our terror become bloodthirsty. We, the teeth of the rabid beast, set to sink into flesh, ripping and tearing, moved into the village. A snarl in our approach. Another little vignette from my experiences in Vietnam, my experiences with war. Last week we began our discussion about class supremacy and wage oppression. We're going to continue that discussion this week and broaden it a little bit and keep things moving. America prides itself on being a classless society. Nothing could be further from the truth. America likes to pretend that all people are middle class, or the vast majority of people are middle class. But if there is a middle class, there must be a class above, below, or on either side. In America, there are two classes. The working class, the overwhelming vast majority of people, and the ruling class, a very, very small segment of the U.S. population. The working class, of course, is stratified. There are many layers, many stratas, many levels. People at the top of the working class, people who have to work for a living, make astounding amounts of money. Yet they have to work to make a living, even though they receive incredible amounts in terms of wages and benefits. These amounts, of course, are extracted from the majority of the world's people. The middle class, those who see themselves in the middle, those who American society casts as being in the middle, is associated with income. There's a certain income that fluctuates and changes and so forth to make one middle class. And then there are the poor and the working. The distinction is made between working people and poor people, as though poor people don't work. Absolutely absurd. It's the oppression of wages. It's the lack of an adequate living wage that forces people into poverty. All the poor people I know, all the poor people that I've known through my life have been working, have worked, as long as there were jobs. Many times people are unemployed. They're not unemployed because they don't want to work. They're unemployed because there are no jobs for them. Because unemployment is necessary in a capitalist system to hold wages down for everyone else. Unemployment creates a large labor pool of people who don't have jobs, who need jobs, and will work, thus holding the wages down of all other people. Professional people occupy upper stratus. Certain professional people like doctors and lawyers, hold upper echelons in the class structure of America. But not all lawyers and not all doctors are in the upper echelons. These varying stratas are important to understand and important for us to use in our understanding of how the class structure of society works. We used to hear a lot about middle class values. What are middle class values? Values that people in the middle class hold. If we're talking about middle class values, they must be something different than values of working class people. So let us examine that for a moment. I analyze that middle class, I would ask people, what are middle class values? And people would respond, wanting good education for their children, wanting a nice home to live in, a safe, secure neighborhood, having adequate food, having adequate health care, having access to the basic amenities of life. And I would scratch my head because every poor person I know wants the same things. They want good educations for their children. They want safe communities to live in. They want adequate housing. They want adequate medical care. And so posing middle class values as wanting those things, yet all people want those things, was curious to me. And so I investigated. And I came to the conclusion through my analysis that middle class values are the values of working class people when they take on the values of the ruling class, when they begin to see themselves as superior to and better than other people, and that they move in ways to protect property, private property, at all costs. That's the values of the ruling class: to amass great wealth, to amass great private property and to protect and maintain that wealth and property at all costs. And that's what middle class values are. When working class people receive large amounts of money for the work that they perform, wealth that's extracted and brought to America through the workings of the empire, extracted from the vast majority of the world's population and distributed to certain elements, certain segments of the American working class, such that these people begin to identify with the ruling class, identify with the ruling class through the ownership of property, through the maintenance of that property, through the need to defend that property. These are the values of the rulers, and these are the values that are middle class. Working people and poor people strive collectively to improve the conditions of their lives. We see this in struggles around unionization, which is coming to the fore again in this country after suffering many, many, many defeats. Currently, only about 7% of the workforce in America in the private sector is unionized. In the 30s and 40s, the percentage was more 30-35%. There's been an active effort on the part of the rulers and the government to diminish the impact, the effectiveness, and the ability of working people to organize and form unions. Ronald Reagan, who was president in the 80s, was a big mover in this. When air traffic controllers went on strike, primarily over conditions of safety in the United States airports, Ronald Reagan ordered them back to work, and if they didn't report to work, they were fired. Across the board, air traffic controllers were fired. This was definitely an assault and an attack on all working people. In terms of wage oppression, I want to highlight two corporations, the Walmart Corporation and the Disney Corporation. You know, the people that bring us Disneyland and Disney World, the fantastic, wonderful vacation place, the fantastic fantasy world, adventure world, frontier world, Tomorrowland, the place of dreams, the things we see on TV, the cartoons, the movies. People who work at Walmart Corporation, the corporation that has grocery stores, has merchandise stores all across the country, find themselves unable to meet their needs from the wage that they receive working full-time at Walmart. The same is true for people who work for Disney. Janitorial people, maintenance people, people that work in the theme parks, etc. In both situations, these working people are forced, because they don't make enough in their hourly wage, to meet their needs for housing, their needs for food, their needs for medical care, just the basics, are forced to rely on support from the communities they live in. their need to rely on food stamps, welfare, and other support programs that exist. This is supported through our tax dollars. Tax dollars pay for food stamps. Tax dollars pay for medical assistance. Tax dollars pay for welfare. The money for these things comes from other working people. It comes from the very people who work at Walmart and Disneyland. The oppression of not being able to earn enough money through your labor to support oneself and one's family forces people into a position of constantly scrambling and scratching to maintain themselves, leaving them no time for anything else. It keeps people in a constant state of struggle, preventing them from developing and improving their conditions. It's only through collective effort, through unionizing, for example, that people are able to develop themselves. We're going to leave it there for today. We'll be back next week and develop these concepts a little bit further. In closing, I would like to say, we are the ones we're waiting for. Dare to struggle, dare to win. Please join with me, the Prisoners of Conscience Committee. All of us are none. Formerly incarcerated, convicted peoples and families movement. And we say, well, what's the call? Free them all. Dare to struggle, dare to win. All power to the people. Ashe.
Yes, sir. Another great one.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you a whole lot.
That was, I think, the best one. We got it recorded, and we got the songs mixed in. That's right.
Cool. We getting it.
Yeah, we get it.
You know, everything's a work in progress.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
Right? And if it slips off next week, that's okay too.
Hey, what happens, you know? It'll get right back on track, though.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.